Hey, folks, it is great to see you. My name is Jerry Herships. I'm the pastor at Applewood Valley United Methodist Church in Golden, Colorado. We're about 15, 20 minutes from downtown Denver, and we are in the full swing of summer, and I'm getting a little sunburned occasionally, but nothing I can't deal with. So let's go ahead and have some God talk. Our passage today comes to us from Philippians, and it's the fourth chapter, verses 11, 12, and 13. Here's what it says. This is Paul talking. Not that I am referring to being in need, for I've learned to be content with whatever I have. I know what it is to have little. I know what it is to have plenty. In any and all circumstances, I have learned the secret of being well fed and of going hungry, of having plenty and of being in need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. It's the word of God for the people of God. So I want to start off today by telling you a story that I'm pretty sure we can all relate to, being chased by a tiger. Anyway, so the story goes, a monk was being chased by a wild tiger, and the monk was running directly to the edge of a cliff. Now, having no other choices available to him, because he didn't want to be eaten by the tiger, he leaped off the cliff. And then, as he's going down along the edge of the cliff, he sees one lone branch, and he reaches out for it and grabs it. Gets a hold of it pretty good. He's safe for the moment. But he looks up and he sees the hungry tiger, and clearly the tiger's waiting to eat him. He looks below and he sees the deadly fall in the roaring river that would be his certain death. But then he looks over, and on the branch at the very end was one bright, perfect berry. And the monk picked the berry and popped it in his mouth and said, delicious. And scene. Okay, more on that later. So I go to see my shrink Len about once a month, just to sort of check in, see how things are going with him, but mostly all about me. I usually do it whether I have stuff going on or not. We just sort of have this sort of standing date once a month. So I go in to see him, and I realize at this particular moment in time, I am not dealing with anything traumatic. And that, well, now that has me concerned. See, I grew up with a very when will the other shoe fall mentality. And I realized in that moment that in some way I needed to give myself permission to be happy. Maybe you know this feeling. I also came to the conclusion that almost all my sadness, I wouldn't call it depression because it wasn't ever that heavy, but almost all my sadness was a result of mulling over something that had happened in my past. And almost all my anxiety came from thinking about the future. It was either, I can't believe I said that, or, oof, I wish if I had only, or you know what I should have said, or can you believe the way that guy treated me? And if it's not that, then it's God. If this happens, we are so in trouble. Oh my gosh. And if the stock market changes, we are sunk. We'll never retire. Or God, what if the bishop moves me and I have to go to a new church? Ugh. There is one solution that solves all these problems. In fact, Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book called You Are Here, Discovering the Magic of the Present Moment. Ram Dass wrote a book called Be Here Now. In a nutshell, it's now. Now solves all this. This moment is the only moment we can actually have joy. You can anticipate joy, but that's not joy. You can think back to a great trip or a great time that you had, but that's just remembering joy. Joy can only be had in the here and now. And more than joy, only contentment can be had in the here and now. Now, it's not happiness. Happiness depends on the circumstances you're in. But we can choose contentment. This is what Paul's talking about here in our passage today. He's not relying on having plenty to be content. He does not let having little deter his contentment. Now is the place for our joy. Now is the place of our peace. Now is the place of our contentment. I used to fight contentment tooth and nail. I used to think it was the same thing as settling. I used to think it was boring. What I was really fighting all that time was peace. Paul in this passage is telling us it is not what is happening to you. It's not what's going on around you. It's not what you read on the internet, and it's not what you see on the nightly news. In short, it's not what's going on outside of you. It's asking the question, what's going on inside of me? And this is the spot God does some of God's best work. But the rest of the world does not want you to be in the moment. It wants you to be angry about those people over there. You see what those people did to you? It wants you resentful that you got the short end of the stick that last time. It's really big on us versus them. And it wants us to be anxious about the future. It wants us to buy that security system. It wants us to buy that handgun, just in case. And because we're all getting just a hair older, it wants us to buy that aging cream and that hair growth serum that has been clinically proven to restore hair growth at the root. Madison Avenue and security companies neglect to tell you that now, in the 21st century, we are living in the safest period in human history. They neglect to tell you that we are the recipients of the greatest medical advances the world has ever known. They neglect to tell you that global life expectancy has dramatically increased and child mortality rates have plummeted. More people have access to clean water and sanitation and electricity than ever in the history of the planet. Major global wars are less frequent. More people have access to information, and the number of people who have the opportunity for education is greater than any other time in history. The truth is that despite the fact it sometimes might feel like we're living in a dumpster fire, there is overwhelming evidence that we are richer and healthier and better fed and better educated and more humane than any other time in human history. And sadly, the truth is, many of us just don't want to accept that. Because accepting these things is a huge key to contentment. And that means accepting the good and the bad. We're not talking about putting our heads in the sand here. This is not about getting fitted for rose-colored glasses. When my dad was alive, my sister used to call me after she had a phone conversation with my dad. She would say, "Can you believe he wanted to talk about the weather? Can you believe that?" He actually said to me, "How's the weather there?" Can you believe that? Yeah. Yeah, actually I can. That was our dad. I'd be more surprised if he didn't ask me about the weather. Think about somebody right now that you just can't stand. I'll wait. Took less time than I thought. Now think about the last time you thought, can you believe that they did that? And let me ask you, is it consistent with their past behavior? Then why are you letting it disturb your peace and contentment in the now? See, Paul has learned to be content in all things. We can too. Stop letting people live rent-free in your head. And if I'm really honest, the things that bother me in other people are the things I don't like in myself. There's a saying often used in psychology and self-awareness work: if you spot it, you got it. It simply means that when you notice something, especially something negative or irritating in someone else, it may actually reflect something within you. For example, I can't stand people that want to be the center of attention, people that brag too much, people that make it all about them, people that are know-it-alls. Okay, you get the idea. And yes, I know I have talked about this before. And what I've learned over the years is that there are some things we need to talk about more than once: love, compassion, service, forgiveness, peace, contentment, living free from anxiety. We have to learn acceptance. We have to stop being so upset about what is. It is. We can't change what is. We can change what will be. I mean, that might be making sandwiches for the poor for tomorrow so they're less hungry. We can change what will be. That could be calling a congressperson if you want change. We can change what will be, protesting injustice and cruelty and sexism and homophobia and greed. I promise you, Jesus would do the same thing and did. There was some table flipping on Jesus's resume. But don't let what is affect your peace in the now. Finding peace in the now and fighting for change, fight for change and changes in the future. We don't fight to see the change necessarily. We fight injustice and cruelty and sexism and homophobia and greed because it's the right thing to do. There's a quote that says, "Cease expectations and you have all things." The power comes in the doing. And if the outcome is not what you want, then do it again. But the rightness is in the doing. At the center of peace is acceptance of what is. Now, if you don't like it, change it. But don't let it affect your peace, your contentment in this present moment. Many people know the serenity prayer. God grant me the security to accept the things I can't change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. A lot of people know that prayer. That's the most famous part of the prayer by Reinhold Niebuhr. But there's more to it. It's the second half of the prayer that's useful for us today, I think. After that first part, the prayer goes on to say, in its less famous part of the prayer, these words: living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as the pathway to peace, taking, as he did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever and ever in the next. Niebuhr is essentially paraphrasing Paul. Paul is reminding us that he can be content regardless of circumstance. This is our goal. This is our holy grail. To not let our misery and despair be dictated by anyone's latest post or soundbite. To know that we can do all things through Christ. He is our strength. He is the center of our power. And when we make the conscious decision to know our strength and our commitments lie in God, our contentment lies in God. And to remember that it doesn't lie in the nightly news. When we do all that, our eyes will be open to a whole new peace. And that is something the world cannot shake. We live in the now. We accept what is today and continue to fight for a better tomorrow. Because it's there we'll find our peace, in the now. So go ahead. Pick the berry. Delicious. Let it be so. Amen. So this is one of those, pretty much like everyone that I do, that I pretty much needed to preach to myself and thought just maybe somebody else may be going through the same stuff. We live in the now, not the regrets of the past, not worrying about the future, but accepting this moment as it is right now and finding our contentment in that. To know that what is what is. We can't change that. We can maybe change how it's going to look tomorrow, but learning to have that acceptance of what is in the now, and then to find the joy in this moment. Find the berry, regardless of the tiger up above or the raging waters below. Well, I don't know if that came through, but that was thunder. That was some creepy, creepy timing. Anyway, I hope you all do great this week. I hope you put more love in the world. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Whoa.